Go then. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our talk on accelerating SMR deployment. First of all, I'll take a minute to speak about Amentum, because some of you may not know our name. So we take our heritage at the very early stage of the civil nuclear power, since part of our organization was involved in creating and commissioning the Calderol in Sellafield, which is the very first nuclear power plant in the world, even though it was not the first objective for this space. So we've changed names over the course of our history. Some of you may know us as, or may have known us as Amec Foster Wheeler, as Wood, as ACOM, or earlier as Jacobs. This was true until last year, where Amentum and Jacobs created part of what used to be named Critical Mission Solutions. So we are now part of Amentum, with 53,000 people over the world, more than 80 countries actually. Where do we work mostly is in civil nuclear, in cyber and intelligence, in defense, and in wider renewable energy. So part of this means we are the largest supplier of services for the NASA, for example, in the US. So we get to speak with a lot of very clever and exciting colleagues within the organizations, such as nuclear physicists, cyber experts, and many others. So within the civil nuclear power, we do innovation first with the labs that we have. We have over 20,000 square meters spread in the UK for a lot of R&D, and all over the world with the government sites that we are operating for them as labs. We do as well deployment, as we deliver many programs from design and build, obviously in the UK, since our history is part of this, but as well in many other places in the world, which includes Emirates with Baraka and in Poland with PEG. We will discuss this a bit further. And we do as well a lot of decommissioning in Slovakia and in the US. And this comes with a lot of assets that we are dealing with from the US DOE's legacy. And all of this is very interesting in these times. So I'm Franck Mathieu. I'm a portfolio manager for the SMR AMR in France and for the Belgium market as well. And this is Tim Kooyers.
Hey everybody, I'm Tim Kooyers. I'm a commercial director at Amentum, and that means I have the fun job of looking at the future and seeing how we could create the commercial and delivery models to deliver our shared ambitions. So thanks for coming today, and we'll start off. And you don't have to look far to see that interest in the SMR market is growing. Here I've created a chart that shows news mentions of SMRs in the English-speaking press. You could see in 2022 that they doubled from 500 a quarter to 1,000 a quarter. And in the past year, they've doubled again to well over 2,000 a quarter. I've created what I've coined the SMR interest meter here. What I've done is I've overlaid the stock prices of the publicly listed SMR companies, those being Oklo, NuScale, and Nano Nuclear. So you could read across them. I've made the x-axis a percentage, where 100% is today's value. You could see they all share an astounding upward slope, right? It doesn't look like it's relenting anytime soon. So when I look at this slope, it reminds me of something else. This is the Gartner hype cycle. Those of us who have have been within technology innovation will be familiar with this curve that we have here. I'll walk through a bit of it for you now. It starts with the technology trigger. So this is when a new innovation comes to market. Proof of concepts are there, and it generates a lot of excitement, which raises media interest, brings us to the peak of inflated expectations. This is where, early successes are amplified. People are overlooking the early failures. Unfortunately, what can happen after that is what we call the descent into the trough of disillusionment. This is when the timelines for implementation become clear. The the product doesn't live up to the inflated expectations, and media investor interest could wane. Those lucky products that make it out of that enter the slope of enlightenment. This is where early successes are real. We start seeing a proven ROI, and where actual implementations coming to life. Then reaches the plateau of productivity. This is where risks are known, they've been mitigated, they've been allocated. We have investable cases, we have our solution set, and we mainstream adoption and mainstream programs of work. And this is what we want to get to. The question for us here is, how do we bridge this trough of disillusionment? How do we avoid this big roller coaster? And there's ways to do that. I'm going to talk to a handful of them today. I've broken them down into two sections, so education and innovation. Within education, I'm going to talk about ways that we can have external and internal manners of education. For innovation, I'll talk of the commercial and delivery model innovation that's needed to bring the industry forward. So we'll start off with external education. This is the easy one for us because everyone loves talking about what they know about and what they're passionate about, right? It's human nature. So it's, but the complication for us is that nuclear tends to be somewhat of a closed sector, and I'll give you an example of that. Earlier this year, I was at a round table, and I was doing that thing that we all do when we sit at a round table, thinking of those 2 or 3 sentences that are going to define us for those next few hours with those individuals. And I came up with mine. I thought, I've worked on finance and commercial models across a range of infrastructure sectors, but I'm relatively new to nuclear, just joining full-time the industry 6 months prior, which was true at that time. The gentleman before me stole my thunder, though. He talked about his area of expertise, and then he noted that he was relatively new to nuclear, having worked in the industry just 10 years. Right. With those timelines, I'm going to be new for quite some time yet, so we'll see how it goes. But being that longevity of tenure within the industry, it has many advantages. We have deep expertise across the range of issues that are required to bring programs to life. It does also come with disadvantages. One being that we tend to speak our own language. An example of this is in many discussions and many of the documents on SMRs. You'll see the specific SMR unit mentioned and without reference to the vendor. So you'll see charts that say the BWRX 300 or the AP 300. And while those of us in this room here, we know what that means. We know who those vendors are. You go outside this pavilion and you speak to a group of investors, a group of industrial end users, utility customers. You're going to see a lot of confused faces. The second disadvantage is that we tend to talk to the same people. Again, this has huge advantages. Nuclear has a strong community where we have shared relationships that have been built through program delivery that enable us to deliver the future that we're going after. However, we are seeing a more diverse group of individuals enter into the nuclear industry, and we're seeing that in attendees at events such as this. So while gigawatt projects will, of course, always continue, the nuclear SMR projects have a much more diverse client and user base. This client or user base, this is a new asset class for them. We need to increase their familiarity with it, and the way that we do that is by speaking in a language that they could understand. So you'll see that although I was talking external education, I did sneak in some internal education there. But the more important internal education part is how we, as we tend to do, we tend to talk about the technology. And the technology is fascinating. But in order to reach wide-scale adoption, we need to start talking about the application and how it's packaged in the solution. So when people are buying SMRs, well, as the market matures, you will see that they will be interested in the solution package and not just the technology. We can't expect every single customer to be an expert in nuclear power. We have to be that expert and provide the solution for them. So speaking to that, you'll remember this curve that I shared at the beginning and spoke about. I've overlaid it here with the innovation adoption curve. And overlaying these can cause some furor on the internet, as the Gartner hype cycle is for technology and the innovation adoption curve is for applications. So I'll tread carefully here, careful where you put those pictures. But I think it is applicable to illustrate the point that I'm discussing here. What the innovation adoption curve says is that early adopters, they come on because they are excited about the technology. They fashion the expertise within their own understanding and purchase because of the technology innovation. However, that enters the chasm. You may have many of you may have heard of the crossing the chasm paradox. And so what the underlying theory of that is that that technology needs to be wrapped in applications. It needs to be wrapped in solutions to gain early majority and the late majority and reach mainstream market adoption. So applicable to SMRs, that is, how do we wrap this into the end use? How do we show that it will be a system solution that will bring to customers? For example, if it is, in the press today, it's SMRs for data centers. How does this wrap? How does it link into grid? Can it be linked to hydrogen, which can provide backup power but also be sold on? So what is that system that comes in that can be provided for easy solutioning? So with that, I'll move on to innovation now. So I'll start talking about commercial innovation. And traditionally, and every nuclear project in the past has been backed by governments. This could take the form of loan guarantee or government guarantees. In the United States, they provide a mechanism that pushes early project risk and construction risk to the utility end users, to the customer. So essentially, the private market is not taking that risk. With the SMR market, you'll read a lot about how it could be more attractive to private finance in earlier stages. And this is as we transition to limited or non-recourse funding, which takes the form of structured project finance. And structured project finance essentially is where risks are qualified and quantified to the extent that they could be contracted with the delivery parties to enable them to be wrapped and financed out to market, so earlier involvement of private finance and more complete involvement of private finance. Currently, SMR projects, we're at the beginning of this transition. You'll see the new SMR, the current SMR projects in the market. They're backed by technology vendors, of course, government grants coming in. There is Intrepid Capital coming in the form to help these projects go forward. And then there are large energy users that are providing some sort of surety to their demand. However, that model is evolving. We're seeing Well, we've spoken with many developers, technology developers, and they've noted their intention to step back from the instigation and developer role as the market matures. We're seeing that being filled right now by groups of entrepreneurs who are forming development companies and bringing projects forward. And while those development companies lack the delivery history and the balance sheet of larger organizations, that entrepreneurship is incredibly valuable, something that Amentum supports, and we look to work with those developers to bring our delivery history and our credibility to help them bring their projects forward. As the more of these developers succeed, the more the industry will succeed and bring everybody up with it. So at Amentum, with our involvement in the industry, we do speak across a range of actors. We speak with the developers I spoke about, the tech vendors, the utility customers, industrial users, large landowners. We also speak with a lot of investors. What I thought I would do here is take a moment to compile some of the insights that I've got as I've spoken with the investor community recently. And this is, I work in commercial and financial models, so these are the discussions that I tend to have. The first insight is the new asset class risk, and this comes as no surprise. There's no program delivery history, so there's no documented nature of what risks will materialize and how they could be mitigated. The insight here is that when we think of financial institutions, everybody tends to think about the financial district in the big cities and those large buildings with the bank names on top. But if you look within those buildings, you'll see that the origination function within the infrastructure fund of that, it's just a few people. And those few people, they'll have a large stack of opportunities that are asking for their capital that they're evaluating for investment. And most of them have a proven delivery history. So when they have an SMR opportunity next to it, you could see that it may not be the best use of their time to come up to speed on that asset class. This challenge has been overcome in other industries. There's an interesting example for hydrogen, where a few years ago a fund did all of the due diligence on hydrogen and shared it among the street and the square mile in London. And that allowed other firms, other investment institutions to invest in their fund and gain exposure to that new asset class. Another item I hear mentioned a lot is long time frames. This isn't only for nuclear. Yes, nuclear has long time frames. I see this more as a familiarity issue. You look at, for example, subsea cables, and those are incredibly long time frame projects as well. They have to traverse multiple national jurisdictions as they go from destination to destination. The investment community is familiar with those, and they have no problem gaining private finance. Third point brought up is the equity needed. And this comes from a lot of the major banks that I've been speaking to. They say how governments come speak to them. Project instigator and development agencies go speak to the big banks. But they forget that equity is needed before and alongside the debt. About 20 to 40% equity is needed. So you do need more of that intrepid capital coming in, seeking that equity return. Then, of course, there's manufacturing risk. And that is, with these new products, there needs to be a form of surety that the components can be supplied on time and on cost to enable that the operational data as forecast to get those revenues coming in. Which segues into the next item. Here I've put revenue is into risk. And, well, of course, revenue is a risk. But that means that what I'm referring to here is that while revenue is required, you need to have offtake, and you need to have a form of surety on the offtake. The revenue model and contracts are already in place. They already exist. We have our power purchase agreements. We have our contracts for difference. These models exist in various forms in various geographies, and they could be implemented. There isn't innovation needed with revenue. It's just securing that offtake within a structure that currently exists. Last point here is the new models. I've had the opportunity to speak with various family offices and venture capital firms that are experimenting with new models and how they could come to market. We are even talking with institutional investors who are experimenting with new models as well, which is really interesting. So this is a really fun place to be in right now. I'm enjoying my job. All right, and with that, we'll move on to innovation in delivery. So at Amentum, as Franck mentioned, we're involved in delivering nuclear projects around the world. Two of those projects, we are a project delivery partner for Hinkley Point C and the program delivery partner for Sizewell C in the United Kingdom. And I bring these two projects up as they serve as a really good example of reawakening a nuclear delivery capability within a nation and also introducing the systemization of processes. So when we started on this journey, we first discovered the problems. And those problems being lack of skills within the region, the transfer of design across international borders, cultural differences that came along with that, as well as lack of definition requirement to be managed and to manage against and manage the delivery against. As we've progressed through this process, we've put in mitigations. This includes contracting skills requirements with the delivery entities, working and partnering with local skills development agencies, and defining those requirements so they could be managed in a better framework. As we move forward, we're taking those learnings and we see an opportunity with SMRs to design out the problems. So this is creating regional supply chains, accompanied with an operating model that works across the program to share best practice and to uplift the regional supply chains and the skill sets to enable that delivery. It also includes a systemized manner of managing requirements, as with any major program, they can tend to fall into silos still. So part of doing this is the program management and setup. And this is where the innovation work streams that I've talked to can be intertwined. As you look across different infrastructure sectors, there are innovative delivery models that are combining both commercial and delivery models. So the commercial model is the contract structure that holds everybody together and defines how everyone makes money. The delivery models are how the entities are aligned to bring that delivery together. Some of these contract models are the enterprise model that we see in the United Kingdom, the Australian alliance model that's used internationally. And these models, what they do is their commercial mechanisms reinforce collaborative behaviors. They're used for projects where the outcome is required, but the path to get there is still unclear. So the delivery parties share risk and share profit and are jointly incentivized to reach that outcome. I can't do a presentation for Amentum without mentioning social value as well. This is at the core of what we do, and we think it's an essential part in the core of nuclear programs. First, of course, you need to bring value to the region within which we operate. So that is not only winning hearts and minds with where these projects are intended to be delivered, but also driving economic growth in the region and uplifting the local populace. So packaging those all together is how we'll work to deliver the ambitions of the SMRs. And now I'll pass over to Franck, who will talk about how we're actioning some of these in some projects.
Thank you. So what we're going to do here is diving a bit more into what we do on a daily basis with case studies. So these are the three pillars that we've been mentioning and talking to you about for the last minutes, because we think they are the key ones for accelerating this deployment. So the first one is instigating. Why instigating? Because the market needs all the stakeholders to be involved as early as possible, to be as efficient as possible. Efficient in the schedule, efficient in the cost, efficient in the communication, etc., etc. And so the way we do this is being used to work across all those parties, as we've been saying, with the major programs. We bridge this gap. We are used, as Tim was saying, we are used to speak with end user, regulators, technology vendors. And so we bridge this gap with accelerating this communication and this agility. And I'm going to park the case study for this one, for the next one. So innovating, obviously, we're speaking about SMR and AMR, so we have to innovate jointly. And the best way to innovate is to be very agile and fast on thinking the best way to do this. And the case study that I'm going to describe here is a very recent one that we've had with two of our customers, which are Stellaria and Horizon. So we had a three-party collaboration agreed between Amentum, Stellaria, and Horizon to do what? To do synthesis and characterization of molten salt, because they both know this, they both need this in their R&D program. And why to do an R&D program jointly, since they are actually competitors, on the market? Well, because this benefits to all of them, to us, to Horizon, to Stellaria, and to the customers. And so the way we did this is that they came to us separately, and we bring everyone on the table and to say, how do we do this jointly, And one example is saying, well, we could have a three-party contract signed, but as Stellaria and Horizon are very agile, we're still a 50,000 people company, So we are sometimes on the contracts, we tend to be less agile than them. So what we agreed is that they already had a collaboration agreement for many other R&D programs. So what we're going to do is just having single contracts with both of them and sharing the cost and the results. And in the end, so we started this summer, and in the end, this will benefit to both of them because it's actually going faster because we have all the equipment set up for both of them. So even though the composition is not the same, we speak openly and we move forward together. And so the last one is obviously delivering. So delivering is what we want to achieve the end of the Gartner hype cycle. And so delivering, I have a case study that's going to fit actually the three key pillars. We, because of or thanks to our history, we are very much involved into the UK market, and so we've from far or from very very much involved into GDA processes in any of the nuclear power plants in the UK. GDA being the licensing for those power plants. And so one of the major players for the Gen 3 Plus, for the SMR, came to us asking for support doing this GDA. And because we have a lot of past experience and we know that they needed to go fast, we bring all of those stakeholders, meaning the end user, meaning the regulator, meaning the customer, obviously, to accelerate this JDA process. Meaning we went from a step 3 process, or 3 steps process, sorry, to 2-step actually. And we had the agreement from the regulator. And in the end, it means that we delivered the supposedly 24 months GDA in 18 months. And better than this is that actually the customer rewarded us to the excellence of work, because during these 18 months, there was no escalation needed in terms of communication, and this is coming from the executive committee of this major player. So, and what we want to do in there is that we want to start by transactional models, of course, because everyone, the customers and us, we need to bring confidence into this. And we want to move forward to partnership delivery. And this is what we're going to do with this major player, actually. So we're happy to do agility, efficiency in all of what we do in a daily business. We're doing this with the Gen 3 Plus. We're doing this already with the Gen 4, as I was mentioning. And as a conclusion, we're going to start doing this with the Fusion startup, because we're already involved in ITER, in the Fusion. We're already involved in Gen 3 Plus and Gen 4, so I'm sure we have something to say with Fusion. Thank you for being here today, and we're welcoming you into the question and answers just after this. Thank you.